let's get started with this story about Russia banning Barack Obama. Now, what is this all about? How true is it? Well, it is true. And he is not alone. Actually, there is a list of 500 people that have been banned entry into Russia, and Obama just happens to be one of them. Let's get started with this clip, and then I'm going to break this down a little more further.
Hit with more sanctions by G7 nations, Moscow has retaliated. It has announced the banning of 500 U.S. nationals from entering Russia. These individuals include former President Barack Obama. On Friday, the United States added hundreds more companies and individuals to its sanctions blacklist. This as it broadened efforts to stifle Russia's economy and its ability to fund the ongoing war. In response, the Russian Foreign Ministry has said that Washington should have learned a long time ago and that not a single hostile step against the country will be left unanswered.
Hold on to that piece right there where he mentions that this also has to do with the sanctions that have been implemented onto Russia, as well as that the U.S. government, they're saying, should have learned that if you try to, retaliate against Russia, they are going to respond. And this is one of the responses. Now, I will get into something else I want to show you. It's a speech from Barack Obama that was actually uploaded 9 years ago, which I feel is still somewhat relevant today. But even in that speech, I feel like Barack Obama wasn't telling the full truth. Surprise, surprise. But this is Russia pushing back against the United States government and saying, listen, if you're going to continue to implement sanctions on us, you continue to treat us in such a way, then we are going to have to respond. And I also find it interesting that this news breaks not too long after the Durham report has been released. Now, for those who are not aware, the Durham report basically shows that Donald Trump is exonerated in reference to Russiagate. That's what that report is showing you. It also showed that they didn't find any fault there in reference to the Clinton campaign team about pushing this narrative for Russiagate. I told you I questioned that. I'm not 100% sure that is true. I'm just being honest. We don't know if John Durham received any type of threats along the way. We just do not know. But the timing is interesting, and I want you to think about that.
List of banned individuals include prominent personalities like television hosts Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, and Seth Meyers. The list also includes journalists. Russia says it has also blacklisted senators, congressmen, and members of think tanks involved in the spread of quote-unquote Russophobia attitudes, as well as the heads of companies that supply weapons to Ukraine.
The Russophobia. So some of you may be wondering, why are there late night hosts that are on that list? According to Russia, they feel that those particular hosts have found a way to increase Russophobia, probably from their jokes that they have during their shows. I don't know. I don't watch Jimmy Kimmel or that other dude, Colbert. I don't watch them. I don't watch late night talk shows. I haven't done that in a long time. But they're also on that list. There's also journalists that they said are on that list as well. So this is going to be pretty interesting.
Meanwhile, Russia has also said that it has again denied consular visits to detained U.S. journalist Evan Gershkovich, who was arrested in March on claims of spying. Now, according to the Foreign Ministry, this decision has been taken in response to the refusal from Washington to issue visas to Russian journalists traveling to the United Nations, with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov last month. Gershkovich is the first foreign journalist arrested in Russia on spying charges since the collapse of the Soviet Union. U.S. has reacted by saying that Gershkovich has been wrongfully detained and has launched a broad effort to exert pressure on Russia to free him.
But they're not willing to use that same type of pressure to free Julian Assange. And this is the hypocrisy here in reference to the journalist, partially because the U.S. government doesn't consider Julian Assange to be a journalist or a publisher. He is. And then also because the information that Julian Assange released actually implicates the U.S. government of war crimes. And that's part of the reasons why I believe they're not trying to push for some type of freeing of Julian Assange, but they want you to free this journalist. So people are seeing the hypocrisy here.
WION is now available in your country.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Now, I want to go into a little bit more detail about this. Now, The Guardian actually wrote about this as well. It says Obama among 500 banned from Russia in retaliation for U.S. sanctions. This is Russia basically trying to do a clap back. That's how I would put that, so to speak. Let's make this a little bit larger for the people in the back. Russia's foreign ministry has said former President Barack Obama is among 500 U.S. citizens who will be banned in response to the latest round of sanctions announced by D.C. The ministry also said on Friday that Russia had refused the latest U.S. request for consular access to the detained Wall Street Journal reporter. Now, that's Evan Gersovich. Now, that's the guy that they were talking about earlier in the video. This move was triggering by the U.S. refusal last month to give visas to media traveling with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to the United Nations. Washington should have learned a long time ago that not a single hostile attack on Russia will go unpunished. Earlier on Friday, the U.S. announced punitive measures against more than 300 targets, aiming to punish Russia for its invasion of Ukraine and intensifying one of the harshest sanctions efforts ever implemented. Notice this here, ever implemented. Today's actions will further tighten the vice on Putin's ability to wage his barbaric invasion and will advance our global efforts to cut off Russian attempts to evade sanctions. That's coming from Janet Yellen. So what the U.S. government has done is they have actually implemented even tighter sanctions on Russia. And this is Russia's way of responding, or one of their ways of responding. We don't know what else they're going to try to do. The Treasury Department said it imposed sanctions on 22 people and 104 entities with touch points in over 20 countries or jurisdictions, including companies that import, ship, or manufacture electronic components, semiconductors, and microelectronics to Russia. That's a big deal. This is a big deal. Companies that import, ship, or manufacture electronic components. So the first country that comes to mind for me is China. We'll get into the trade history with Russia and China in just a second. The U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Friday's action targeted an international network that procures components for the Russia-based entity responsible for the manufacture of the Orlan drone, which Russian forces and their proxies are using in Ukraine. Among the targets on Friday were Russian intelligence services procurement networks and agents, including Liechtenstein and the Netherlands. The Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation was also hit with sanctions. The Treasury Department said it was also imposing sanctions on Russia's energy, educational, and research institutions in a bid to limit Russia's future extractive capabilities. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot that's happening there. Now, again, what did I tell you about the sanctions that have been implemented on Russia? It doesn't just hurt Russia. It hurts other countries that rely on trade from Russia, countries like North Korea that rely on that fertilizer in order to grow food, causing them to have a food shortage. We talked about this a couple of months ago. It also, the pipeline issue hurt countries like the UK, Germany, etc., that depend on that pipeline for their energy. Now, that's one part of it here. But I want you to hear a speech from Barack Obama. Now, this was uploaded 9 years ago, talking about Russia and sanctions back then. And some of this may sound familiar to you in reference to what you're hearing right now. But there's something that he says in this speech that I did not find to be true. Let's go ahead and dive in here. This could also be part of the reason why Russia has decided to ban Barack Obama. Listen to this.
I want to commend the EU for the important steps taken already to make sure Russia feels the costs of its behavior in Ukraine by implementing visa bans and freezing assets and designating individuals for sanctions, as well as canceling a number of engagements with Russia. and making it clear that if Russia stays on its current course, the consequences for the Russian economy will continue to grow.
Hold on to that. Again, 9 years ago, that if they continue doing what they're doing, then the consequences in reference to their economy will continue to grow. What do you see happening right now? Let's go on.
Of course, all this comes atop the measures and sanctions that the United States and others around the world are imposing on Russia. And taken together, they're the most significant sanctions Russia's faced since the end of the Cold War. Moreover, Russia stands alone.
That part right there. Listen to this.
Moreover, Russia stands alone.
Was that true? At that point in time, was that true? I don't think that was true. We're going to come back to the video and I'm going to show you something that proves that that was not true. Did they stand alone at that point in time? No. Watch this. Listen to this. Let's go to, if we want to look at economy, right? Because the first country I thought of was China. Hide all this. One thing I hate about Wikipedia is economic relations. Let's make this a little bit larger because Wikipedia's text can be, okay, here we go. Economic relations between Russia and China demonstrate mixed trends. Trade between the two countries was running between 5 billion and 8 billion per year in the 1990s, but grew steadily from then onwards. Okay, there's more. It was on course to hit 100 billion, the previous goal, until the 2008 crisis interceded. Trade slumped back to around 60 billion in 2015 and 2016, but started to recover again in 2017. Okay, let's jump to this piece. Now, this is during Obama's presidency. Between 2008 and 2009, when Russia experienced a financial crisis, there was a sharp increase in borrowing from China. But they stood alone, according to Barack Obama's speech. You see, this is why it's important to research this for yourself. If they stood alone, why would China have been assisting them at that point in time? And it's not just 2008 and 2009. It goes on to say, the main form of cooperation in the complex economic relations between Russia and China is trade. From 2003 until 2013, mutual trade increased 7.7 times. In 2014, the scale of bilateral operations increased even more. The aggravation of relations between Russia and Western countries contributed to the expansion of economic ties with China. Contributed to the expansion of economic ties with China. But according to Barack Obama in that speech, he said that Russia stood alone. Now let's go back to the video. Let's let him finish what he's saying here. I just wanted to point that out. Let's go on. Obama's been lying for a long time.
Russia stood alone when trying to defend its actions at the UN Security Council. The 28 members of the European Union are united. The 28 members of NATO are united. Every member of the G7 has imposed sanctions on Russia, as we announced.
I don't think Russia cared about being a part of the G7. Just saying. I don't think they cared about that. And they definitely do not stand alone today, because Russia is now a part of BRICS. Let's go on.
On Monday, and the G7 will meet here in Brussels in June without Russia. So if anyone in the Russian leadership thought the world wouldn't care about their actions in Ukraine, or that they could drive a wedge between the European Union and the United States, they clearly miscalculated.
Why is this speech important? See, they were talking about this back then. They were talking about Russia and Ukraine back then. This video is 9 years old. This war between Russia and Ukraine. Some people say this dates to Biden. They blame Biden. Trump says if he was still president, it would have never happened. But what I'm showing you right now is that this kind of goes back to Obama. This goes back to Barack Obama, you guys. This was already set in motion. You see what I'm trying to tell you? This was already decided that this is where they were going to go. Let's go on.
As I've said repeatedly and was mentioned by both Presidents Van Rompuy and Barroso, there is still a way for Russia to work with Ukraine and the international community to de-escalate the situation through diplomacy. That's the only way that the issue will be resolved. If Russia continues on its current course, however, the isolation will deepen.
Hold on to that. He said that the only way the issue will be resolved is if they were willing to basically work with Ukraine. So let's pretend that Donald Trump did not win in 2016, and let's pretend that Hillary Clinton did win. I believe that if Hillary Clinton would have won in 2016, that this war between Russia and Ukraine would have started a lot earlier. Because Hillary was supposed to continue Obama's legacy, not break it down, not strip it away, not remove some of the policies that Barack Obama had put in place. She was supposed to continue those policies. So I really believe that if Hillary Clinton would have won in 2016, I believe that this war with Russia and Ukraine would have started a lot earlier. He's just kind of giving it all away here.
Sanctions will increase, and there will be growing consequences for the Russian economy. And this reflects the enduring commitment to the goal that has brought Europe and the United States together for decades. A Europe that is whole and free and at peace.
It was already planned. Dwayne said Hillary would have gotten us all new. You see what I'm saying? This was all a part of the process. So yes, they have decided to ban Barack Obama along with 499 other U.S. citizens here. And honestly, when you look at what I just showed you, can you blame them? Obviously, this was a part of the path that the U.S. government had planned. This was all a part of the plan. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Kevin Howard. Monty says, like the stream, you can't be here just to hate watch. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead and smash that like button. That helps me with the algorithm. I know people hate watch this channel, man. I know people just sitting there like seething. I know it. Thank you for the super chat, Louise. In 2012, Obama told Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, after my election, I have more flexibility. He replied that he would transmit the information to Vladimir. Interesting, Louise. Thank you so much for that super chat.